2017 was a crazy year for Sonic. One of the biggest hype trains Sonic's had in a while to start, one of the most popular and financially successful Sonic games in a long time in the middle of it, and one of the most aggressively average Sonic games to end it. The main point I'm addressing here is to determine Sonic's future and what quote-unquote should be done for the most financial and qualitative success. And the word should is being used loosely, since I'm a single fan upon the millions that exist and the hundreds that are watching this video. I do mean the Sonic franchise as a whole, and most of it is in a tough quandary. Some might have not even heard of quandary and don't know what that means. Quandary means a state of perplexity or uncertainty over what to do in a difficult situation. A practical dilemma is what I'm describing Sonic's in right now, and this could be said about Sonic since way back in the late 90s when Sega was financially unstable, or primarily during Sonic 06 where the franchise was deemed dead for obvious reasons. But I'm referring to his difficult situation because we have no idea where Sonic's gonna go from here. Given Sonic's history after generations, Sonic's done a lot of different things since when you believe he's got a groove down. After Unleashed Colors and Generations, fans thought the boost would be Sonic's main established go-to gameplay style that would serve as a staple for future Sonic games. However, Sonic Lost World switched up the gameplay, and seeing a spin-off go primarily 3D in one of the worst Sonic games ever, it's gone back to the boost. When it comes to Sonic's gameplay, he has not been consistent after 06. A lot of us may surmise with or without evidence that Sonic should go strictly 2D, go back to the adventure style, keep doing the boost and improve it, try the parkour style again and improve that, go open sandbox and a collectathon objective based game even, do something entirely different upon other requests and demands. But it's not a simple idea as far as a gameplay style. Sonic's got plenty of quirks and kinks to iron out at the moment. Am I saying he's failing? No. When you rate success of a video game, let alone any type of media, you look at the criticism and the amount of sales. Critical acclaim is important on the direction of a franchise and its success, as if given proper reasons and structure, it can provide an organized perspective and idea of how to design the game and to give what the people expect, depending on the genre and IP. But sales obviously complement that. Sales equal the success rate of a property and game, and it wouldn't matter what reviews there are if your game makes no sales at all. Sonic's in a much better position now than he was a few years ago after Lost World and Boom. The obvious contributor to Sonic's current success is Sonic Mania. We have no concrete sales numbers, but it's an incredibly safe assumption that Sonic Mania is an all-around gold mine with sales and critical acclaim. Sega outright said themselves it's the highest rated Sonic game in 15 years and it's on every platform. There's really no need to explain how Sonic Mania is a reason Sonic's doing pretty good right now. And believe it or not, Sonic Forces is another reason Sonic's doing better than you think. For as laughably average as Sonic Forces is, and for as average and low the review scores are for Forces, it's still raking in financial growth. Sega and Aaron Webber keep cementing the supposed fact that Sonic Forces was a strong financial success alongside Mania. Again, there are no concrete sales numbers among every single platform, nor are the ones provided are true. Just vague popularity download lists where they stand and the occasional Steam sales numbers. But no one truly knows how many units were sold yet for either Sonic games on all platforms. Considering how accessible both games are since you can obtain it on literally every current gen platform, how cheap both games are, and how Forces tried to initially advertise itself, it does make some more sense. This wasn't the first time a mixed Sonic game was a financial success though. Sonic Unleashed could step in and support this case. Doesn't matter what people think of the Werehog or the game as a whole, it sold very well despite mixed reception. Over 2 million units within the first couple months of its release, which I'm assuming is because of it was accessible on pre-gen hardware, the PS2, and current-gen hardware at the time, the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360, very similar to Mania's and Force's accessibility, and was potentially a well-marketed game. That second possibility could very well be wrong because I wasn't an avid Sonic fan at the time to know, so note that as a guess. Other than what numbers Steam provides, which is still a quarter of the total install base, we have no clue yet, but according to Sega and their officials, Forces seems to have succeeded in some way. Whether you believe it's deserved or not, it's up to you. So then how is it a quandary if he's sitting in the lap of financial luxury? It's a quandary because of the disconnect between the fans and the unpredictable direction the series is generally going. These two reasons are also bundled with the inconsistent nature of Sonic's team's development teams, certain business practices Sega of Japan tends to create, and the backwards uninformed logic Takashi Iizuka tends to elaborate. We'll start with the divided Sonic fandom and how Sonic's fallen hard over the years. When it comes to Sonic's games, especially the modern ones, there's always been a radical disconnect between its fans. Sonic 06 is one of the biggest contributors to this because of how incredibly rushed and unfinished the game was. Before it released, its marketing and advertising left so many Sonic fans hyped. The title, the premise, the characters, the gameplay, for the most part all gave this huge impression that this game will advance, this game will truly define the Sonic franchise, and it ended up being a glitchy, boring, dreadful, and dishonest experience. Despite the game showing signs of potential and bone to its structure and gameplay, it did not deliver what most Sonic fans were expecting, and Sega and Sonic Team did scam Sonic fans in some ways, mostly with its false advertising. That's what set the dreaded Sonic cycle, scarring and dividing the fandom, splitting fans between the preferences of the classic era and the adventure era. Spin-offs since and now also affect Sonic's reputation, between the Secret Rings failing critically, the Black Knight failing wholly, the Rider series failing in later entries, and more. Fast forward to 2008, the Werehog, leaving this outlying alien impact on Sonic in Unleashed, initially gave the impression Sega and Sonic Team had no clue what they were doing, despite the amount of effort and polish Sonic Unleashed has. Critically, Unleashed succeeded regarding the daytime stages and boost gameplay, which is why the boost is the most recurred style of the main Sonic games as of the past decade, but the sales also tell Sega that people love Unleashed as well in that sense, so they adopted the criticism Sonic Unleashed was given and made Sonic Colors, released in 2010, revolve around the boost gameplay only, adding the Wisps on top to give Sonic and the players more abilities and control as power-ups without providing a secondary crutch in gameplay, like the Werehog was. Because of that, it ended up giving Sonic a positive image again, and the fans a reason to come back. Sonic Team also co-developed Sonic the Hedgehog 4 with Dimps, primarily developing the game before Colors released, to be inspired out of the classic Sonic trilogy, but ended up being another dishonest Sonic game, delivering inaccurate, unfinished physics and controls, uninspired level design, and unnecessary gimmicks, though to a much smaller scale compared to 06. Still, fans felt appalled this would be called a continuation of Sonic's core 2D platforming style, and it felt it was another display of false advertisement. Shortly after, in 2011, while Colors was being developed, Sonic Generations was also being made, capitalizing on Sonic's boost gameplay, which has been a hit so far, and recapturing the original Sonic games through Classic Sonic and his gameplay. Classic Sonic's controls and mechanics didn't fully capture his original Genesis counterparts, but it was a much smaller offense compared to Sonic 4 and was still praised. Generations celebrated Sonic's 20-year anniversary with a compilation of reimagined stages throughout most of Sonic's main console games, and relied on Sonic's boost gameplay a third time, with classic Sonic as the game's crutch as well as nostalgia, but with a real purpose and impact on the game itself. And even though the boost set higher hopes and beliefs for Sonic after 2006, it still had its fair share of criticisms, and was still another wedge in the disconnect from adventure fans and classic fans like those games had, further dividing the fandom. After acknowledging both classic and boost fans in this great Sonic game, it seemed Sonic had a groove, that the boost would be the standard of Sonic's gameplay design moving forward. However, 2013 is where Sonic Lost World threw another wedge in the fandom, creating another gameplay style known as the parkour style, leaving fans confused and apathetic to Sonic again, after believing the boost would be what Sonic would stick to now and continue to improve. Lost World bombed because it was on a failing console, and because of poor, shoddy, and uninspired level aesthetics and design, superfluous and uninspired gimmicks, forcing the Wisps to return, making them mundane unlike what Colors did, and another reliance on nostalgia. The spin-off Sonic Boom was a similar case to Sonic 06 as far as underdevelopment and a dire need in polish, but in some ways was a bigger offender to this because it seemed to set some high bars and cater to more adventure fans initially. Rise of Lyric was just a complete crap show, Shattered Crystal for 3DS wasn't as panned, but still didn't succeed due to forced puzzles, gimmicks, and backtracking, and Sonic's identity was in another crisis, further splitting fans to eschew the blue blur. Fast forward to now, Sonic Mania fully restoring Sonic's core 2D platforming roots and essentially reviving 2D Sonic from the ground up. From its reveal, throughout its marketing, and all the way up to release, Sonic Mania delivered above and beyond Sonic fans' expectations and thrived, but partly because it set such a high bar, Sonic Forces underdelivered once again, returning to the boost and adding a custom some character, but was given lackluster scores due to the superfluous nature of classic Sonic in the game, the unimaginative and automated level design, another reliance on nostalgia, short length the levels and overall game provided, gave another situation of false advertising, and failed to advance the Sonic series in any particular way. Paper Mario may have an identity crisis, but that series has had it nowhere near as bad as Sonic has. It also seems Sonic Team and other companies are almost always put under time constraints and releasing unfinished products, whether to small extents or heinously massive degrees. As far back as to even the original Sonic games, that's nothing new for Sonic. The original Sonic games generally took a year to make, and their release dates prove this. Sonic Adventure 2, despite how beloved that game is all around, was still rust and has some signs of being underdeveloped and unfinished. For example, the radar and the treasure hunting stages, and adding Tails, Shadow, and Rouge last minute. Sonic 06 is an obvious example. Sonic Colors and Generations cut a couple of corners, but were all around able to be finished in their development times. Sonic Boom is an obvious example, and Sonic Forces is as well. Even though Sonic Forces was developed for 4 years, 3 of those years was dedicated to the graphics engine, the Hedgehog engine 2, and there it shows, considering the graphical fidelity and the lighting, textures, and overall visual flair of the game under that smooth frame rate, which is one of Sonic Force's strong suits. But that last year was dedicated to the game itself, creating these half-baked controls, physics, and level design. Sonic games continue to suffer more and more from imperfect programming, unrealized design and ideas, inundated glitches, and unfinished/cut content, whether under the supervision and management of Sonic Team or from another third-party company. Lastly, there was also some business practices Sega of Japan undergo and lead fans to believe they try to get a quick buck out of Sonic fans. Classic Sonic, Shadow, and especially Chaos and Sonic Forces are examples, Sonic 4 is another, and a glaring example is Super Sonic and Sonic Forces. Originally, the files for Super Sonic were found on the PC version and were hacked by fans a couple days after it came out, but Sega planned to release Super Sonic at $2 late January of 2018, an additional ability to Sonic that has generally been there in the main game numerous times, which Sega's decided to lock behind an additional cost. This failed because the outcry in response to this was so voluminous, it was decided Super Sonic became free forever. Fans knew it was sketchy and cheap to ask for more money for a transformation Sonic's almost always had in his games from the get-go, especially since a relatively new Sonic game that came out 3 months prior to Forces never required you to pay for Super Sonic. It only required you to play additional special stages you had to play the game and find and practice at. This is why the fandom is so splintered and very misunderstood among Sonic fans and gaming fans who scoff at the Sonic series. Sonic games have been inconsistent, the marketing with his games have proven to be misleading and false numerous times, the games themselves typically under-deliver in some areas or are just unfinished and in need of fine-tuning yet are releasing like they're finished products, and at times, it feels like Sega of Japan doesn't respect nor take much value in their fans and the Sonic series as well. Even though the same company tends to make most of the main Sonic games these past few decades, the teams themselves aren't consistent either. I mean, the guys behind the levels, the artwork, and more from Sonic Unleashed, Colors, or Generations are not the same people working on Sonic Lost World and Sonic Forces. The level designer for Sonic Generations moved on to making the Mario and Sonic Olympic games. The programmer for Generations programmed Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the field artist for Sonic Unleashed landscape modeled The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the lead field artist for Sonic Unleashed designed planets for Super Mario Galaxy 2, and then became the lead landscape artist for Zelda Breath of the Wild, and there are more and more designers, programmers, and developers that have moved from past Sonic games, ironically enough, to Nintendo or other projects outside of Sega this past decade. Now, we have Lost World's level designer, which is already an issue, and 2 brand new level designers with little to no knowledge on Sonic's prior games, and it makes sense to see Sonic's had new, different artists, modelers, programmers, and developers after each game, seemingly with minimal knowledge on Sonic's history too. While I do encourage new developers and creators to display what they're capable of, I don't if the new developers don't have a firm idea of what game they're working on. I mean, with Sonic and Sonic Forces, Sonic is more than just going fast, and I don't need that many boost panels to get that speed only to try and cover up Sonic's flawed physics and form of movement. I'll talk more about what should be done and who should work on Sonic's design, gameplay, and the likes later, but the unpredictable predictable nature of Sonic's games and development cycle may also be because of the way Iizuka runs Sonic Team as well. The guy we're talking about here is a main producer for a lot of Sonic games after 2009 and is the head of Sonic Team. Takashi Iizuka is the rear end of many jokes in the Sonic community nowadays due to his contradictory statements and unfathomable ways to see the Sonic series. Example, Nintendo Power interviewed Iizuka for Sonic 4 Episode 1 and questioned the physics not being comparable to the Genesis games. Iizuka responded, "In this title, we have not done a straight port of the gameplay from the Genesis games, but rather updated it with actions which could not be done in the previous titles, like ceiling running. These changes probably made for a different feel to longtime Sonic fans. We're happy for feedback like this and we'll make sure we can improve the quality even further in upcoming titles." Except by ceiling running, he means how Sonic can casually walk along ceilings and walls, similar to Sonic 06. In Episode 2, the criticisms are addressed and the physics are improved from Episode 1, but to call that a skill and not addressed as a flaw seems very short-sighted to me. During Sonic Lost World's spotlight, My Nintendo News has an interview with Iizuka on Lost World's levels and stated the following: "With Lost World, we wanted to evolve how Sonic works in 3D. When you think about a 3D level, it's still limited. The sides are limited. So we talked about making levels as cubes or tubes. Expanding the sides around 360 degrees enables players to take many paths, not just 2 or 3. We ended up with a Toon stage and realized we're a bit close to Mario Galaxy." Not only was the level design in Lost World one of its biggest flaws, I'm sure it had Mario's design in mind. If we wanted to play Galaxy, we would've. Sonic was definable, established, and beloved because he wasn't like Mario. After Sonic Forces and the return to the boost, there seems to be a higher demand for the adventure style to return. However, Iizuka doesn't see eye to eye with that demand, even with it being ever so high. Polygon took the liberty of interviewing him on the topic. To be answered, I hear people saying that they want Adventure 3, but the path that we're on and Adventure 3, what fans want that to be, might not be an advancement of the series. So I don't want to do an Adventure 3 and step the franchise back just to give the fans what they want. So let me get this straight. The same man who worked with Dimps to recapture and go back to the classic games with Sonic 4, the same man who was okay with Generations' whole premise, the same guy who didn't mind the level aesthetics, design, and enemies being ripped straight out of Sonic 1 and 2 for Sonic Lost World, and being directly inspired from Super Mario Galaxy no less, the man who stated Sonic Mania was going to have more classic levels in a game focusing solely on old school Sonic fans, the same person who produced a game with classic Sonic returning again, along with Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Death Egg as Force's crutch, feels the adventure gameplay is going to stagnate and set the Sonic series back. No. Iizuka, no. Please practice what you preach. Sonic's been held back for years now. There's this over-reliance on nostalgia since Generations that keeps pushing the series back between gameplay assets and the levels themselves. Even with Sonic Mania's success and praise, the one common criticism is that there are so many old levels that still rely on that nostalgia, and people love the new levels more. Sonic 4 tries to revisit classic territory and flubbed. Sonic Lost World did the same and failed. Sonic Forces did so and failed as well. The only reason Generations and Mania succeeded was that the levels weren't straight rips and provided different twists and elements that made them feel fresh and new, and even then, people wanted new original content. If anything, the adventure gameplay has just as much nostalgia now as the classic gameplay. So why is there an oversaturation of 2D Sonic over 3D Sonic is beyond me when it comes to somehow advancing the series. There's some penchant feeling Iizuka has when it comes to the classic gameplay and implementing all these new gameplay styles. 1UP interviewed the man back during Shadow the Hedgehog's development, and Iizuka was asked what defines Sonic for him and what makes a Sonic game, to which he replied, "For the past 14 years, Sonic's been based on a really cool, fast-paced type of character. Moving forward for the future, we don't want to throw that away. We want to keep that, but within keeping that, we want to add additional features that will help bring in a new type of audience." but this has been the key problem with Sonic since Shadow the Hedgehog. The problem is Sonic doesn't need swords, guns, his classic self, wisps, custom creations, a werewolf, and more to attract a bigger audience. Sonic just needs to be Sonic. You just need Sonic, even as friends, to have his core properties of speed and their unique abilities and powers to defeat evil and bring peace and justice in either a 2D or 3D platforming action-adventure game, whether with the boost or the adventure style. You can't change the gameplay up every single time in order to cater to every single fan in and outside Sonic's community. His identity will continue to be lost in doing so. That's just going to divide the fandom even further and stagnate the franchise because there's no priorities. There's no set path for Sonic to follow. No matter what product you're selling, not everyone is going to like it. If you're trying to please everybody, you please nobody. What about the Sonic fans you've accumulated over the years? Do they just randomly get shafted and then get acknowledged only to be left alone all over again every once in a while? There hasn't been a Sonic game like the Adventure one since 06, which was just an unbelievable atrocity that played almost nothing like its predecessors. So it ended up being crap. Big deal. You could still revisit that ground and try to solidify that gameplay and address any issues in further installments. Trying to change the gameplay over and over also tends to not fix any problems and sets nothing forward because what is done is also given up relatively quickly when it comes to Sonic Team. Sonic Lost World's parkour system had potential, but that's the only game we've ever seen it too. There has to be some standard set for modern Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog has to choose an established style going forward. You see other franchises like 2D and 3D Mario, Kirby, Zelda, Pokemon, Uncharted, Smash Bros, and more flourish because their core gameplay and properties have remained the same since their first installments. If Sonic constantly remains experimental, it's going to get lost in the crowd of many other established IPs. Adventure, Adventure 2, Heroes, Colors, Generations, the original trilogy, CD, and Mania all had set goals, established ideas on what to do, and because of that, they were critical and financial successes. Those games delivered and succeeded among the gaming and Sonic communities. So Sonic's stuck in this limbo with little to no idea on where he's going to go from here on out. Sonic's not necessarily dead, but Sonic has a lot of issues. A lack of brand identity, a lack of cohesion, a fractured fanbase, rushed scheduling, an older, seemingly less knowledgeable development team, an over-reliance on nostalgia, and a rather undeserved ill-will reputation. They're all issues that Sega and Sonic Team need to address if they want to get back on their feet. With Sonic moving forward and after what Sonic Forces and Mania gave, we all know what's in store for 2D Sonic, at least we all hope so. Christian Whitehead was able to prove himself and his team with Sonic Mania, so if you want to play more 2D Sonic, he could stick with that from now on. Iizuka did state Sonic Mania would determine the direction of Sonic titles going forward. I pray to God by this he means they'll keep 2D Sonic where he belongs, in those 2D platforming Sonic games, and more can be made under Taxman's supervision and expertise. Christian Whitehead gave the classic levels in Mania new twists and ideas to make them feel fun and fresh to assure players that Sonic Mania was a big game. He knows what he's doing with classic Sonic. Let him and his developers create new 2D Sonic games with new levels, new characters every occasion, and each level can have different new mechanics and ideas to make the experience feel modern and fresh under that classic coat of paint. Bottom line, it'd be insanely short-sighted and a waste of great talent if they were done with Taxman's work on Sonic, let alone classic Sonic. But the issue is the bar Mania set, and where forces fell afterwards. Sonic Team can't accept another mediocre entry in the series after not just multiple average installments after they went third party, but when the fans of the series are able to develop one of the series' best games, yet the official development company can't seem to come close. It's hard to pinpoint which style will come next, whether it's adventure-based, the boost, or a different style entirely. If I had to guess, I'd predict the boost would come at once again, only because it's the gameplay style reused the most, and given Sonic Forces sales supposedly meeting expectations, it's not impossible. But I hope you guys know, Sonic's State of Quandary goes beyond the multitude of gameplay styles he's done, and it's not just inserting X style to make everything better, because the current Sonic team didn't deliver what most expected from a Boost Sonic game. No matter what style they go for, there has to be at least two things Sega and Sonic Team or another company they may work with have to do if they want to set a path for Sonic moving forward. For one, have a coherent focus. The more well-received and successful Sonic games tend to have a focus on what the gameplay and overall experience should be. Sonic Adventure would transition Sonic's core gameplay philosophies into 3D within him and his friends in a more detailed story-driven Sonic game. Interesting and unique levels were made that utilized the most of those characters' attributes in this more open-styled format. Sonic Adventure 2 was practically the same, except a hero and dark side was used and both sides retaining the same gameplay among two characters. The game on a whole also had unique and interesting levels as well and was more story-driven. Sonic Unleashed focused on the transitioning from Sonic Rush of the boost gameplay as well as the new Werehog beat-em-up gameplay, making unique levels and adding a bunch of moves and combos to the Werehog. Sonic Colors taking the boost gameplay which was praised upon in Unleashed and implementing the new Wisp power-ups within it. Sonic Generations, reviving the 2D classic gameplay and coexisted it alongside the boost again in a homage to Sonic's past games and recreated various levels to complement their respective styles and even enhance the experience compared to the level's original counterparts. Sonic Mania, reviving the absolute core of classic Sonic's legacy, especially Sonic 3 and Knuckles, to play, look, and feel like those classic games and even add brand new levels and twists. All of these, minus Unleashed to a degree, sold and were acclaimed very positively, even to this day. Even Sonic Unleashed, for as alien as the Werehog was, is now further appreciated for focusing on that and its boost gameplay and level design. The ones that lacked a coherent focus, for example, was Sonic Lost World. It had a brand new parkour system, and people liked the idea, despite altering the gameplay style, but the levels failed to complement and experiment with it. Not to mention the levels themselves literally felt like Super Mario Galaxy for no reason. And of course Sonic Forces, having the boost gameplay and the custom hero, but forcing classic Sonic in there and adding literally nothing to the game itself, on top of the bad level design all around and missed potential. Whenever a solid focus is given to a Sonic game, even when the execution may be mediocre, the likelihood of it being a good game increases. They have a set path, an actual plan, they're just shoehorning whatever they think the general fans may want. The other thing, using time intelligently for reviewing criticism, hiring efficient employees, using the best and affordable resources to their fullest, and developing their games themselves. For the love of God, this shouldn't even require an explanation. But with all 4 years dedicated to Sonic Forces, 3 were on the graphics engine and 1 was on the gameplay itself. Despite the team wanting to do more with the levels in-game, Sonic Mania and Sonic Boom Fire and Ice are recent Sonic games that passed over their initial release dates in order to apply common criticisms carefully, study and reflect what was wrong with previous installments, test the game and iron out any bugs, glitches, wrap up on most of the levels and ideas they wanted to add, and just polish the product they want to sell to the healthiest and cleanest shine they've ever done. Pushing the game past the holidays is not going to kill the game nor franchise. Rather, it not only leaves a healthy impression on the brand and company, but you're just making the game better than it would have been, potentially better than any of us would ever expect. You can reuse an older style in a modern game as long as you use resources and time to the most proficient manner possible. Sonic Forces was a disappointment because it didn't advance the boost formula at all and limited Sonic's moves and skills even further between his controls and insanely automated level design. Sonic's not all about dashing like a maniac, Shun Nakamura. No one enjoys playing a Sonic game to run himself if the game is letting him run for you. That kills the engagement and overall experience. Take time with the levels. Try and find people who do have an idea on Sonic's philosophies and gameplay. I hope those surveys for Sonic Forces feedback is really being taken seriously, because applying criticism and working on improving what was supposedly wrong with valid reasoning can go a long way. We know you listen to the fans, and it's not that you listen too little or too much. Just listen carefully at the genuine and structured criticisms of your games. Don't pull cheap stunts and false ads if you're going to leave your consumers unhappy. We feel comfortable knowing that whoever's working on a Sonic game has an idea on Sonic's core gameplay, whether the boost or adventure. It'd be cool to have Christian see what he could do with 3D Sonic, but it doesn't have to always be him. Fans do have the potential with creating these 3D Sonic games, and they can improve themselves like Taxman did. But the process is not only time consuming, it's also somewhat rare to notice fans like those for Sega and Sonic Team to pick up on them, but it won't hurt if all that time again is spent towards making the game as great it can be. There are other designers, programmers, artists, producers, and fans who are capable of providing the product that Sonic fans will easily eat up, rake in the cash you're trying to build, and progress the series forward. The adventure style can progress the series, the boost can progress the series, and Taxman is already progressing classic Sonic. If I was allowed to add another necessity for Sonic moving forward, get Sonic off this nostalgia grind. We're all done with classic Sonic in modern Sonic titles, and Green Hill, and Chemical Plant. Sonic Mania proved that as long as the execution, time management, and resources used towards the product are efficient and smart enough, then it's excused because the game will become a good one, but no progression or advancement can be made if you're stuck in a single position for years on end, with little done to change or complement it. Otherwise, it grows stale. You can't progress Sonic the Hedgehog if you bring him back in Green Hill, if you give his modern moveset and levels the classic feel. No one plays Sonic CD for the same reasons they play Sonic Adventure. Nobody plays Sonic Mania for the same reason they play Sonic Unleashed. If you want to play a classic Sonic game, you play the 2D games. If you want to play the 3D Sonic games, you play the 3D Sonic games. It's not rocket science. It's a simple request that'll go a long way to truly defining Sonic the Hedgehog. To summarize, Sega and Sonic Team need to rip the band-aid off, take a leap of faith, and trim off the fat of the fanbase. The passive nature with Sonic is unacceptable now. Sega's CEO acknowledging how they betrayed the fans back in 2015 is not going to cut it if they're going to do it again with Forces. To Iizuka and whoever sees Sonic as experimental and is trying to please different types of fans more and more, that's not how general consumers and fans want Sonic. That's what set Sonic on this dark path that ostracized and changed his identity and has left fans despising and hating Sonic. Stop changing Sonic into something he shouldn't be, and please practice what you preach. Otherwise, genuinely take what your consumers have to say into account. There's the boost gameplay. Sonic's fast-paced platforming abilities bent around mastering the speed of sound and improving your reflexes and instincts that a few other characters can utilize around long levels that complement those abilities and speed and provide a thrill of excitement. There's also the adventure gameplay, where Sonic and more characters can utilize momentum-based speed bent around using that and other abilities Sonic's friends are known for as a reward, able to becoming skilled at using the terrain to your advantage and providing a more relative exploration-based feel, depending on using those skills and how the levels are created. Both gameplay styles are preferred to be utilized in entire 3D stages, and they both have defining characteristics, easy to learn but difficult to master fundamentals, and inhibit a fair share of criticisms. Between choosing one or the other, or both separately, or both combined even, you have to suck it up and say, this is what Sonic is now. If you don't like it, then it's not the game for you. Yes, you lose portions of the fan base, but again, not everyone is going to like your product at the end of the day, no matter what it is. Don't try to appease every fan, because that confuses the brand and consumers and creates a less established and less polished product because the focus is so skewed. It'd be easier to make a good game when you have less people to please and most of them want what you're selling. Sonic Mania is proof of this. This can backfire, sure. It'd be ultimately the right call and base Sonic off of a good design. Don't just apply the basic elements of almost every standard style the fans want, the boost, classic, customization, etc. You have constructive criticism for Mania and Forces and previous Sonic games. You have ways to make levels fun, different, and exciting. You have time and reasons to fix and polish Sonic's controls and the physics of the characters. You even have ways to improve the writing, the story, the characters, and provide a more dynamic atmosphere on the game, since the fans' feedback and constructive criticisms can help you point in the right direction. Use that to your advantage. It's a codependent relationship. One can't survive without the other. Whoever's going to make the next Sonic game in the future should have an idea, established knowledge and mindsets on Sonic, his fundamentals, his abilities and levels up to this point. Properly look at the criticisms and demands for each main Sonic game. Come up with ways and ideas to create fun levels and evolve the concepts of whatever gameplay style you choose. Don't worry about delaying the product to polish the game. We encourage you to take as much time as possible, and at the very least, just try. Game development isn't easy, but compare the amount of content, passion, and love from Sonic Mania to Sonic Forces, or Sonic Unleashed to Sonic Lost World, and it gives that sense that there isn't enough effort being made, nor customer satisfaction is being met. Make time of the utmost essence and use it to your advantage instead of being impatient and greedy. Polish what you're trying to focus on between levels, physics, design, and the overall gameplay experience instead of haphazardly slapping together multiple gameplay styles and calling it a day. We're all seriously trying to let Sonic thrive and succeed in quality and sales, and it's becoming harder and harder with what you've done with Sonic this past decade. Please try and work towards fixing Sonic's identity and core focus to give the fans a reason to buy, positively critique, and recommend these games to even more gamers out there. Sonic's state of quandary can't be solved if he continues to move on like this. With the South by South panel approaching rapidly, we can only hope for the best for Sonic. Maybe there was another Sonic game being made in the background we have no idea of, I don't know. Either way, time will tell whether Sonic's brain will continue to drag in the mud, or he'll finally walk down the yellow brick road to quality, satisfaction, structure, and prosperity. Thank you for watching this very long video, and I hope you guys stick around for even more Sonic content to come, alongside Mario, Paper Mario, and other Nintendo videos. Stay super.